Hello and welcome to the Talking NorCal podcast, the official podcast of Active NorCal. I am your host, Zach O'Brien. With me, as always, it is Bob. How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing great. No more nicknames. We're just dropping nicknames now.
I've been so busy. It's just hard to remember to think of a
nickname. Excuse every week. What about like holiday? I mean,
Holiday Bob? That's not a good nickname.
It's not terrible. You've come up with worse.
Because I make them up on the spot. I just stopped making them up on the spot because they're not good. So yes, Bob is in the house.
I'm in the house. Happy to be here.
We are back with another edition of the Talking NorCal podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Active NorCal magazine. Issue number 15 is here. It is beautiful. We got Bernie Falls on the cover here. We got a ton of great articles, including 21 Adventures in Redding, California, talking about Caltrans in the winter. We have a whole article. We sat down and interviewed a bunch of their people. We got an article about 3 new trail projects that are going to transform outdoor tourism in Northern California. And then we have an article about the gold rush towns of the Sierra Nevada that you could still go and check out. Check it out. Really good issue. We're stoked on it. You can still get your subscription to the Active NorCal magazine at activenorcal.com. When you go to checkout, use the code TALKINGNorCal. This is just for listeners of this podcast. Use the code TALKINGNorCal at checkout to get $10 off your subscription. So that's a full year subscription for just $20 a year. Great deal. Again, the Active NorCal magazine. Use the code TALKINGNorCal to get $10 off your subscription.
Now, this is exclusive content. Now, we write a lot of blogs on the website, and we try to keep our audiences as formed as possible. But what's in the magazine is not published on the website, so it is exclusive to the magazine. All of this content's phenomenal content, great pictures. Great everything, great advertisers. Shout out all our advertisers. So, code Talking NorCal, save some money, get yourself a subscription to get some of Northern California's best active content.
We got a complete guide to Sequoia National Park. We got an article about hiking to Phantom Falls near Lake Oroville. We got a weekend in Guerneville, California. So we got some great stuff in here. Check it out, activenorcal.com. Once again, promo code Talking NorCal. We got an awesome episode today. We have the founder of the Shasta Mountain Guides, Chris Carr, coming on to talk about all things Mount Shasta. And we have a lot of news to talk about, so let's get into it with the Tahoes. Hella NorCal.
NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and I could spend all day just chilling in the South Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and Darren knows how to do to kick it down in Santa Cruz. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and we get a little cray-cray when we visit the East Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal.
Okay, we have some winter weather here in Northern California, and it seems like we've been opening up this podcast talking about weather a lot, but it does pertain a lot to what we do. First and foremost, snow in the mountains, particularly the Tahoe ski resorts over the weekend got 4 feet of snow. Mount Shasta got a couple feet itself. It's funny, Palisades Tahoe reported 4 feet of snow, and they had their massive Tahoe live concert going on. So there were avalanche warnings as Diplo and Lil Wayne were performing on the stage.
That's awesome. I mean, the snow was much needed. We got dumped on in November, but then it was kind of bleak for a bit. We had high hopes of a lot of snowfall during the winter, given that atmospheric river plus whatever the hell it was in November that hit us. But yeah, it's back, 4 feet of snow in Tahoe. That's fantastic. And we talk about it all the time. Northern California thrives when snow falls.
Yeah, all the waterways are up pretty considerably in terms of water levels. Much of the snow that fell on Tahoe was on the north side. So Palisades, North Star, Boreal, Sugar Bowl, Diamond Peak, places like that received a bunch of snow. Not so much on the south side of the lake or at Mammoth, although Mammoth got a decent amount of snow, as it always does. Yeah, so it's been a decent start. I think all these ski resorts, especially on the north side of Tahoe, are reporting higher than normal snowpack for this time of year. So good start. It's funny because I saw the Department of Water Resources in California actually forecasted that it's going to be a drier season. So
When?
In the 2024-25 water year, they are predicting that it's going to be... Now, sometimes they do that just to provide better water allocations, right? Like they have their forecasters, although there's no way you could possibly forecast this stuff.
Right.
But they have their water forecasters, and they went really conservative on it. So they'll it means they'll hold on to water in like the reservoirs a little bit longer. So that was interesting. That it's always it's weird how different forecasts, especially when you talk about government, are trying to allocate different water to different municipalities, but also rivers for the salmon and that sort of thing. So they're saying they're still expecting a dry year, but so far so good. We're on pace to have a really good year. What was really interesting about the storm over the weekend was Saturday, December 14th, I go on whatever social media site and see there is a tornado warning for all of San Francisco. Sure enough, near Santa Cruz in Scotts Valley, a tornado touches down, and it looked intense.
Yeah, it was not something that we're used to on the West Coast. I've always looked at tornadoes as something that is an East Coast thing with regards to, and sometimes in the middle of the country, but just never a West Coast thing. It's never, and we worry about earthquakes and we'll talk about coming up sometimes like maybe tsunamis, but very rarely. But tornadoes never came across my radar, except when I was a kid. I remember vividly having a reoccurring nightmare where I was getting chased by a tornado. But again, and that did happen. I remember it was on our childhood street. But that was false. That was fake. That was a dream. It never happened. So it's a little alarming, honestly, to get a tornado on the West Coast. I mean, when was the last time we had a tornado warning even on the West Coast?
So we get tornadoes in the greater Northern California area maybe once every year and a half, once every 2 years. I remember a few years ago, a decent one touched down in Davis. That was intense to see because you could see it from very far. It was, near like Highway 80, where it's flat and you can see super far away. So there were a lot of videos of it. They're always the twister based like scale is EF1 or EF0 to EF5. And this one in the Santa Cruz area was an EF1. So it's small. That being said, it still turned over several cars, including there was a firefighter battalion chief sitting in his car. It turned over as he's sitting in it. Tons of trees were pulled up that, I don't see anywhere. I don't know if they have indicated how much damage was done. They did see 83 mile per hour winds at the San Francisco airport. So it was just kind of a crazy day. I saw all the ski resorts, had 80 mile an hour winds at their peaks. So it was kind of a crazy scene for a while there on Saturday.
We actually get more fire nados than we get tornadoes, it feels like.
That's true.
California.
Although, yeah, we haven't had one in a while, I want to say.
Well, it's because we haven't had fires, really. Like
we haven't had super intense ones. But yeah, no, it's once every year and a half to 2 years, I'd say, a small one touches down. And honestly, they're typically not in areas that are this populated. So we typically don't see this much damage. So it's kind of crazy. We saw this over the weekend, but overall net positive with the storm and the precipitation, I would say.
Yeah, I don't think anyone died in the tornado. I mean,
No,
I think
no,
it
no.
only, I mean, reading witness accounts, it was very quick. It didn't last like an hour. I mean, it was like 15, 20 seconds or something like that. But
I'm seeing here 3 people went to the hospital. Everyone was fine. Yeah. So
that's a net positive, I would say. Then
net positive.
Sorry
Yeah.
for the people that got injured, but overall, I'd say it was a good week of weather in Northern California.
Twister. I actually watched Twister.
You watched it
Twisters.
finally?
Well, I had watched the first half. Yeah, I finally watched
you
the second
let
half,
down?
which was it was okay. It was
still
just like
have
the
to see
first.
it.
It was just like the first one.
I think I saw it's available. to
I
watch
watched
now.
it on a flight while I was gone. By the way, you want to know who was on my flight right behind me?
Who?
Founder of Apple, Steve Wozniak.
No way.
I got a picture. of
Wait,
him.
so which flight?
So it was my long flight, and I was in business class, and he was right behind me. And I stood with him in line. I was like, I talked to him a little bit.
Did you really?
I
What do
looked
you
it
mean
up.
You talked to him a little
Well,
bit.
we talked about the line and nothing. I didn't. It was. I was gonna say like, hey man, I'm a big fan, but I hate whenever I see celebrities, I never do something like
No,
that
I don't
because
either.
I think it's just like
I tell
and I'm
other
glad-
people.
I'm glad I didn't because I like kind of ran into him a couple times on the flight. It would have been super awkward if I was like, hey dude, I'm a fan. But I actually looked it up. I'm like, why is this guy flying commercial? And I guess he only made $100 million at Apple because he left so early. But
So, I mean, I know he was behind you, so it's hard to what was his in-flight routine?
He slept.
Bust?
He slept.
Oh, he slept. He didn't
Yeah.
bust out an Apple computer and start.
he slept most
plugging
of the
away?
flight. He was wearing shorts, which is a big turn off for me on flights. Not a big shorts guy.
Not on flights. Yeah, no.
Especially
in
on
your
long
real, in your
flights,
real
but-
life, you wear shorts almost every day, though.
Yeah, but not on flights. Never on flights. I don't want my any much skin showing at all on flights.
I agree with you on that one.
But yeah, he was super nice. Like when we were in line, anyway.
That's pretty cool. You didn't tell me about
Steve
that.
Wozniak. Yep. Okay, so that does our quick little
We'll call them
opening there.
headlines.
Yeah, just kind of what happened recently, but we have a lot of news to catch up on, right?
Yeah, let's talk about some NorCal notes of the week. First NorCal note of the week, kind of a very sad story, actually. Chico's historic Bidwell Mansion destroyed in late night fire.
Yeah, that was a week ago. It happened around 3 a.m. The fire department got a call at the Bidwell Mansion, which is a state park, right next to Chico State and somewhat near downtown or kind of downtown adjacent. It's interesting because I did a internship when I went to Chico State, which part of it was working at the Bidwell Mansion, so I know this well. Yeah, it burned down. They came out yesterday and said it was arson.
Right.
So I don't know what that means, whether it's like, was it like a homeless person that accidentally started it, or was it like an actual person trying to set this historic building? If anyone doesn't know what the Bidwell Mansion is, it's this giant 26-room mansion. Again, it's right basically downtown adjacent in Chico, that was built by the founders of Chico, John and Annie Bidwell. It's probably one of Chico's like greatest artifacts because the Bidwells were so big. I mean, it's the legend is that Bidwell walked around town planting trees. He would just walk around planting seedlings all over the place, and now Chico's known as like the city of trees.
Well, Sacramento was the city of trees.
Well, they're both kind of.
Close enough.
I actually think that Chico and Sacramento are really similar in that sense. Like Midtown is very similar to downtown Chico and how it's a grid and how it's a ton of trees. So anyway, yeah, it's they're looking for the person who started it.
Yeah, it's definitely arson. They know that for sure, but they have no idea who did it. That's the thing. They know 100% sure it was started by a person. They have no idea who that person is. So it's sad. Yes, it could have been a mistake, but hopefully it wasn't anything malicious. But who knows? Either way, it's not a great thing. Now, in reading this, and maybe this is because I don't have as much sentimental tie to it, but like these things happen. Northern California, things set on fire, and like, well, I mean, was this mansion going to last forever? It wasn't. It's almost you'd rather it go like something like this to where you can recognize it instead of it just one day they're just like, all right, well, this building's falling over. Let's just kind of brush it under and.
Yeah, so they've actually, obviously it was built in 1868. It's 160 years old, so they've done a ton of renovations to it pretty recently. So that's a huge waste of money.
Yeah.
That
I'm sure
sucks.
they're going to get insurance money, but
yeah. So the question is, so I saw the latest person related to the Bidwells, I don't know, he's like an older gentleman, but he said he hopes they rebuild it. I don't know.
So the family still owns it?
No, it's a historic park. It's a state park.
I see what
it's a
you're
state
saying.
park, but he's the most recent person in the Bidwell lineage. I think he still lives in Chico. He basically said, I hope they rebuild it. It kind of loses its luster.
Well, it just depends on how much they can kind of salvage, if they're going to just try to bulldoze it and try to build a replica, that seems a little weird.
Yeah, it does. And I don't know what they have. Obviously it just happened. They have not made a decision, but it's sad. I mean, this is really, this was really a historic foundation of Chico, and it's gone, and you can never get that stuff back. So, yeah,
shout out the Bidwell Mansion. I guess we'll talk again about what they decide to do once they make some of those decisions.
Well, my guess is if they've determined it's arson, they definitely have evidence.
No, they said 100%.
Yeah, so who knows if they'll find the person or persons involved.
Yeah, we'll see. But I'm more looking forward to seeing what they do with the mansion, what they can salvage, if they can salvage anything. And I mean, at the end of the day, if they can't salvage anything, bulldoze it and just make a nice statue or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a long way off. I think they're still processing what just happened. It's kind of crazy.
Speaking of statues, the next story. Mount Shasta Ski Park unveils controversial Virgin Mary statue at the top of Douglas Butte. Now, I say the Virgin Mary statue, but they claim that this is a non-religious entity.
It's non-denominational, as they claim. Seems
weird to me. Seems a little, I don't know.
You and I have known it.
I actually think it's a beautiful statue, though, by the way.
Yes. So they announced this last year that they were doing this. You and I have known about this for 6 years.
Yeah.
We met with some people there a long time ago, before COVID, and we were talking about Gray Butte, and they said, yeah, on top of Gray Butte. Basically, they said, we're fighting to get funds for both Gray Butte and for this religious statue that the ownership wants to build. And this was Ray Merlot, passed away in 2020. He is the head of the family who owns the ski park, who purchased the ski park, in 2017, 2018, maybe. And this was sort of his dying wish, is he wanted this 20-foot statue of the Virgin Mary on top of Douglas, which in turn has like this fantastic view of Mount Shasta behind it. It's really beautiful.
I don't know if the statue is 20 feet. I think the whole structure is 20 feet.
The whole thing, yeah. It steps up to it.
We had heard about the 20-foot statue, and that's a big statue.
So
this thing is not as tall as
I have had
thought it was
people
gonna
send me pictures of it. I have had people told me it's big in real life.
Is it really?
Yeah. So, I again, we haven't seen it in person yet.
No, but the pictures are fantastic. Again, I think it's a gorgeous. It's actually much better looking than I ever thought it would be.
Yes, they spent at least $1 million on it. I know they were putting aside $1 million for it. They may have spent more. I don't know. So this is Robin Merlot, whose husband was Ray. She really fulfilled his vision of this statue after he passed away in 2020. They dubbed it Our Lady of Mount Shasta. Again, it's located atop the Douglas Lift, and since Mount Shasta Ski Park opened on December 11th with a bunch of snow, a lot of people have seen it. This was with some controversy. There was a petition going around for people to urge the Forest Service to stop this project. It obviously didn't work.
It's a private business. They can do whatever they want. The business. I mean, to an extent, yes, they are on, what is it?
They permit through the U.S. Forest Service. So it is U.S. It's part of the Shasta Trinity National Forest. It's interesting onto itself because it is a private business, but they do business with the Forest Service, and they use permits through the Forest Service, which is why they can't open, say, as long as they want in the spring if they have a bunch of snow. So, yes, again, I think we've talked about this in the podcast in the past that, this is a non-denominational, tribute to the spirituality of the mountain. That being said, the Virgin Mary is really, really points to one religion and one religion only, and that's Catholicism.
I totally agree with you on that one. I wish that the two owners, the proprietors, the people who wanted to do this, just kept the Virgin Mary to themselves and just called this the Lady of the Mountain or something like that. Then I think everybody would have embraced it. Because if you look at the statue and you look at other statue of the Virgin Mary, they're not similar looking, really. You can argue that this is just the Lady of the Mountain and the spirit of the mountain. And I like that, right? Like the spirituality that comes from that mountain is well renowned, but you're literally calling it a statue of the Virgin Mary, which is Catholicism specifically, and so calling it non-denominational is their way of trying to brush it under the rug. But like, you could have just called it the Lady of the Mountain or something like that, and then just kept it's the Virgin Mary. You could have written it down somewhere even, and so it comes out after, whatever. But I just think leaning into it at the beginning was maybe not the best idea.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because there actually is a Lady of Mount Shasta. There's one area where if you look at Mount Shasta, it looks like there's a lady laying down, and they've called it the Lady of Mount Shasta. But yeah, it's clearly the Virgin Mary. I mean, it's very, you can't, she's holding up the baby Jesus. And so, there is some controversy. Whatever, it's done. I
kind of want to see it. I mean, I haven't been up to the mountain since literally we had that conversation with them about it. So I'd like to see it. It looks pretty cool. I'm sure that there's like drone shots that are going to come out, right? Some pretty cool drone.
I've seen a lot of pictures. We shared one of the drone shots that the ski park shared. It's going to be interesting moving forward. I don't know if they put some sort of easement on it where if they sell the ski park in the future, it has to stay up sort of thing. I don't know. I don't know if this will contribute to tourism, like some sort of spiritual tourism will come visit the mountain for this. That's what they mentioned when they sort of announced the project. I sort of can see that, but not really. I don't know.
But shout out to the owners. I mean, they're like, listen, this is our park. This is what we want to do. There's controversy behind it, but whatever. And like, more power to them, honestly. Like, I don't have a problem with that because, yes, they are leasing the land, but they had the right to do it. Nobody stopped them. Why not? If you have the money and it's your dying wish, like, I really don't have that much of a problem with it. I do wish they leaned more towards the Lady of the Mountain, but whatever, teach their own. If you own a mountain or, that nobody had a problem with them putting up a new lift, which costs them a lot of money, right? Then they're like, all right, well, we gave you the lift, give us our statue, and yeah.
What's interesting to me is this, and look, I don't know how the Merlots are doing. Like, they own a bunch of stuff. Like, I'm sure they're doing fine. This mountain had financial issues for years during the drought. So say there's another 5-year drought where this mountain can barely open. Are they going to wish they put that $1 million into the mountain instead? I don't know. Now, maybe this is also going to be something that people will go see during the summer so they can charge, lifts up in the summer. I'm not sure.
I assume that this family isn't living or dying based on the revenue generated from the ski park, though, right? Like if you own a ski park of that size, it's probably just a...
No, but people should not forget that during the drought, we were legitimately asking the question, can this ski resort survive? Right. Can it survive? It is a it's a south-facing resort, which is bad, right? Like if they were able to build a ski resort on the north side of the mountain, it would do a lot better just based on, like, look at all mountains that are good. They're usually north facing. So it's low in elevation compared to other ski resorts. So the snow just doesn't do very good. So look, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But there is an opportunity for this mountain to have financial struggles in the coming years, specifically due to drought. So we'll see if they wish that they held onto this money for other things. But I don't know their finances. So
yes, controversial nonetheless. And anybody in our audience, if once you guys get up there, if you take some awesome pictures or whatever, send them to us at Active NorCal, at Talking NorCal. We'd love to see all the pictures that you guys have. Let us know what you think, too. Like, I don't know. Do you guys like this? Is this something that you're excited about? Again, I think it's a beautiful statue, but I don't totally love the religious entity of it. Anyways, speaking of controversial subjects, the next NorCal note of the week, controversial fence removal will allow Point Reyes Tule elk to roam free for the first time in nearly 50 years. Controversial because, and I read this and didn't really know, about 25% of the area that is owned by the park is leased to ranchers, which cattle ranchers specifically, which I guess I just didn't know that. And they're the ones that are upset. Now, I get both sides, but honestly, the problem comes from them leasing the lands to cattle ranchers, really.
So this has been going on for a long time. The controversies surrounding Tule elk in Point Reyes. They really confine these elk to this small portion of the park because of what you said. The ranchers have a certain amount of area that they lease from the national park. Now these dairy and cattle operations occupy roughly 1/4 of the park.
Which is crazy to me. I just didn't know that.
So they were there before they started the park, and with that, when they created the park, they were grandfathered in, right? So this has been this huge controversy that's been going on, and they keep these elk in this portion of the park with this giant fence.
But it's a really small area. What, like 2,900 acres or something like that?
Yeah.
It's not that much room.
And they, like, during the drought year, significant elk passed away.
Almost 50% of the population.
50%. So there's a lot of organizations out there who have been really pushing to help these elk roam freely through the park. This fence kind of limited their access to food and water, especially during the drought years.
Specifically during drought, really. I mean, it's not. They're doing okay now.
So this is the first time that they've been able to roam free since 1978. It's a huge deal, and it's going to be interesting to see how they sort of repopulate the rest of the park.
Yeah, they're going to first take away fences that don't really border any of these ranch areas, which it's like, okay, well, why did you fence that part in anyways? But once they start to unfence the portions that are going to be, right next to the ranches is where it's going to get real controversial. I like to support elk, but I totally understand the ranchers' side of things. It's their business. They've had this there. We rent this land from you. You know exactly what we're doing, and now you're doing something that's going to be a detriment to my business. I understand that. But they could, honestly, they should have expected it. If you're ranching in a park, you've got to expect that at some point that relationship probably is going to end, and they're probably going to push you out. And so this may be just the first step in it. I, first of all, love dairy. I love beef. So all for the cattle and the dairy industries. So yeah, it's kind of a tough situation they've been put in.
Yeah. My guess is that as part of this agreement that, the National Park Service or someone is going to help these ranchers mitigate any impacts that will be done from these elk, right? It's the same with wolves. The state gives ranchers who are impacted by wolf packs money to invest in non-lethal ways to keep them out, or they just straight up reimburse them when there's a wolf predation on cattle. So my guess is they're gonna work together, right? I don't know how bad elk are going to impact the pastoral environment of these ranches.
I was thinking about that myself. Like, I mean, what? More predators? I mean, the elk aren't going to hurt the cattle.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe their cattle escape is what I was thinking. Maybe these fences help keep their cattle in.
Maybe it has to do with the grass and eating of the grass.
Ooh, maybe.
I don't know.
There's only so much grass to go around.
Yeah, but this has been this hugely contested thing in the park for a long time. The conservation groups, the environmental groups have been pounding their fist and doing all sorts of protests trying to get these elk free. And so we finally have it. And we'll see what the impact is from these elks roaming free.
I was thinking about it. I wonder how high an elk could jump. Like, do you think they can jump these fences? It feels like they should be able to, right?
I know they can jump pretty high, but it's probably an 8 foot
8-foot fences,
something like that. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. They definitely go over. I mean, you talk about an elk and its antlers, like those antlers go pretty high. It definitely goes like over the antlers. So
yeah, you'd think that
6,
more
7
would
feet.
be. I mean, if they had a normal, like a 5, 6, maybe even not even a 6-foot fence, a 5-foot fence, they'd be able to jump over it. Maybe just make it a smaller fence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely worked in keeping them in the place. So it's big enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Next story I'm really excited about. Electric flying ferry could revolutionize Lake Tahoe transportation. Really cool story.
Yeah, Fly Tahoe is trying to make ferries, electric ferries across the lake, a thing. And these would be powered entirely by battery, right? They're electric. And I don't know exactly what flying ferry means. And by the way, I know a lot about like electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. Don't ask me why I know, but I do. And I have seen things like this where you basically are using a flying apparatus and gliding along the water that also sort of, when you stop, it floats kind of like a boat. But it perfectly aligns with the environmental goals of all the organizations around the lake to try to, keep Tahoe blue. And this could really help alleviate car traffic around the lake on Highway 89, 50, 80, all the cars trying to get around the lake. You could just take one quick 30-minute jump over, get there without any environmental impact.
No, I think this is absolutely fantastic. You've seen the like they're not surfboards, but they're kind of gliding boards that you can ride on like a lake where it's the same kind of it's not a propeller, it's more of a wing that goes underneath the water, and when it's on these boards, it's really it's propelled by the gyration, if you will, of the actual rider. So this is really, really cool. It's it's reducing the amount of drag on the boat, but it's also, and what I love about it, completely electronic. So there's no emissions. It's not going to be putting anything negative into the lake. And as you mentioned, it's going to be like a form of transportation. If you've ever gone to like Catalina Island, you have to take a ferry from LA to Catalina Island. This is going to make it, and so it's almost like mass transportation transportation over Lake Tahoe, which, like, what a great way to commute to work, right? I agree with you that it definitely can alleviate parking issues. There's going to be a lot more cars on. We've talked about all of these, improvements and things coming to Tahoe, but none of which are going to alleviate traffic except for this one. This one potentially will. So I see no drawback of these. I want to know how many. I know that they're planning on making like 5 trips,
5 a day. It says, yeah,
and it's gonna I think it used to take like an hour and a half, and now it's going to take 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So it hauls ass, which I think is also really cool. And imagine being on it, because like when it's sitting still, it's on the water, but when it takes off, it's got to like rise up. That's going to feel super badass. And so I think this is going to we're going to see more and more of this. I mean, you see Tesla unveiling these like buses that are going to be just unmanned, and we're going to just see more automation, things like this. And what's really going to be cool is when you start to see like boats like this doing this on the ocean, where they actually have to battle waves and things.
Yeah.
And once they can like get the technology to be able to do that, because it's going like 3 times faster because it has no drag, and it's for me, the future is like showing itself in front of us in real time, and I like seeing it.
Yeah, apparently they have similar vessels operating currently in Sweden. So this it's not like they made this up. By the way, this is the vision of Ryan Meinzer, who's the founder and CEO of Fly Tahoe. I've spoken with him a little bit. We're going to try to get on the podcast early next year to talk about just what this could actually do and the technology behind it. But this is cool. I mean, so say you go into South Lake Tahoe, you're staying with your family, and you get a epic pass, 4-day pass, and you go to Heavenly twice, and you're like, you know what, I want to go to North Star today, but I don't want to drive all the way around for hour 45 minutes to get to North Star. Let's take the ferry across. And I'm sure some places like North Star, like all these places are going to have buses waiting there.
Totally.
Take the bus there. You don't have to worry about parking, right? You don't have to worry about it. Then you hop on the bus, you hop on the boat home. You're home in an hour, but you don't have to drive. You don't have to worry about traffic. You don't have to worry about chain control, closures, weather, anything like that. So it really could revolutionize the travel of and around the lake. And it's crazy that no one's thought of this before. I guess they've thought about ferries. There's certainly ferries on the lake, but it does, if you have too many ferries, its environmental impacts are poor. So
none of them are electric. They're all petroleum based, and so, and then this one hauls ass. Like, that's all. It's so, and it looks cool. I looked. I didn't spend like an hour looking, but I couldn't find any video of a boat like this in operation. So I think it's still going through, some testing and things to perfect it before they actually launch it. But I mean, all things, if everything moves forward, we could see this next year or early 2026.
Like, we talked about with Haley Hawkins at the League to Save Lake Tahoe. Car traffic is right now becoming the worst contributor to negative environmental impacts on Tahoe. So alleviating that traffic in any way is positive, and this is something we should all support.
We'll see more of this. What's just coming to me in real time is seeing, like, I'm sure. Again, I was talking about these like electric buses that are like unmanned or whatever. Once they come out with vehicles that can do that in the snow, which is going to take a lot more because like you have to figure out how to navigate in those kind of conditions. But I can see an automated 4-wheel drive vehicle picking up people from this and taking them to Tahoe or whatever, and so it's cool. I like seeing the future unveil itself in front of us. Speaking of Tahoe, the last story we have here, Lake Tahoe announces Lake Tahoe Outdoor Arena announces star-studded concert lineup for summer 2025. This seems pretty cool. Have they done this one before?
Yeah, so they do this every summer.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the Harrah's, the giant outdoor arena they have at Harrah's. And during the summer, obviously, like these evening performances are gorgeous on Lake Tahoe. Perfect weather right on the lake. So, they actually have pretty good concerts every single year. So the announcement of their schedule is kind of a big deal. So this is what we got. June 14th, Rod Stewart.
Pause. So the I saw this and it just our mom's birthday is June 15th and Rod Stewart is mom's favorite. So I just thought
I think Rod Stewart played last year, if I'm not mistaken. I remember I was going to go to Tahoe one weekend, and the prices were crazy, so I just decided it wasn't worth it, and someone told me, oh, Rod Stewart's playing. So I think he's coming every summer now. I don't
think
know.
He's got one concert in a year, or do you think he's got multiple? I mean, the guy's got to be close to 80.
Yeah, it's probably not a pretty sight. But he's got some jams. I like Rod Stewart.
Of course he does.
Yeah.
Rod Stewart's the man.
July 11th, Cody Jinks. By the way, this is not their final schedule. This is kind of just what they announced. They'll add on to it. I don't know who Cody Jinks is. July 18th, John Party. Don't know who that is. August 10th, and this is their headline, quote unquote, Creed.
Yeah, no, I'm fire. Would love to go.
You're a big Creed fan?
Absolutely.
August 24th, this is the one I'm most excited about, Weird Al Yankovic.
What do you mean you're most excited about?
I love Weird Al.
So do I. I love Weird Al, but like that would be the most exciting of the concerts that you can go to.
Of this lineup, Weird Al.
I'd rather see Creed.
I'd rather see Weird Al. I don't know who's opening. I don't know who's opening for either.
You're talking to the biggest comedy music fan of all time. I haven't seen Weird Al live, but he did perform with my favorite, Tenacious D, several times. They toured. But I saw like The Lonely Island perform with Tenacious D. Shout out Festival Supreme. Anyways, I don't know if I would like. I think I would much rather go to Rod Stewart or Creed than Weird Al. Although I again love Weird Al.
Yeah,
I just don't know if I need to see him live. I'll bet you he's better pre-recorded, kind of a thing. You know, like what is he gonna do?
I don't know.
Play his.
Look, that's just that's my childhood, Weird Al.
No,
So,
I get it.
September 6th, Teddy Swims. Don't know who that is. Do you?
Teddy Swims is the guy that looks like Derek, isn't it?
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure it's the guy that
Is
looks
he
like our
a
friend Derek.
country guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then September 20th.
Yeah, dude, that's Derek.
Okay, well, he doesn't tell me anything about his music.
He's a country artist. Soul, more country. He likes to do a lot of covers. He doesn't have a lot of his own music.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then September 20th, Megan Maroney. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, she's pretty new.
Yeah. So that's it. But
they're going to add more, and that's cool.
They're going to add some more.
I've never been to this concert venue, clearly, and I would like to go.
This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 concerts between June and September. So 3-month span. They'll continue to add, and they do a bunch of smaller shows and stuff. This is kind of just their big lineup, but this is coming summer of 2025. It's always kind of a big deal. We really should this year compile all the concerts going on in Northern California, because I do have trouble finding one place where you can see them all, right? Like you have Rolling Hills Casino has them. You obviously Golden One in Sacramento has a bunch. Thunder Valley outside Sacramento has a bunch. South Lake Tahoe, even if you're willing to go into San Francisco, there's a ton. It'd be nice to put all these in one place so people can sort of pick.
It's a great idea for an article on
it is.
NorCal.com.
I know my wife's already looking at her. She wants to do more art, more concerts in 2025. So we're sort of trying to figure out our schedule to go. I'm not a big concert guy.
She's trying to be a festival chick.
She used to be a festival. She used to love festivals.
Only festival I've ever been to was Festival Supreme.
I'm not a big concert guy,
Nor am
but I'm gonna go to a lot with my wife this year, so it'd be nice to see what the options are. Rolling Hills always has like some good concerts. A lot of them are like throwbacks from the 90s that I love. I think they had Sugar Ray last year. Like I'd be all about that.
I think that like the Hard Rock has shows too. I mean, there's a lot of different venues in Northern California that we can.
The Hard Rock definitely has a lot of shows. They have a
San
lot
Francisco's got a million of them,
Yeah,
but you'd have to just figure out like I mean, that would be hard to. I mean, just San Francisco in and of itself is just
Well,
so many
Golden
concerts.
One, it's crazy. We live so close to Golden One, and I like never know.
Dude, I think
Someone's
there's
like,
a Laker game like tomorrow.
someone's like, oh, Post Malone's playing tomorrow. I'm like, I have no idea.
I would love to see Post
Well,
Malone.
that was last year when
You know, comedian Dan Soder was here last weekend.
oh, at Golden One.
No, he was at the
Thunder Valley.
No, Punch.
Oh, Punchline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sold out 3 shows. I wish I went.
That's. I mean, I was looking at monster trucks are coming in January. I'm thinking about bringing my kid to monster
that'd be
trucks
so
because he loves monster trucks.
I mean, I've been to monster trucks many times, but bringing him, he would be upset. You'd have to. That was what he wants to watch on TV all the time. Which is
it's
not bad.
it's already what he wants to watch on TV.
It's better
so.
than Blippi.
Anyway, yeah, it'll be a fun year of concerts. Let us know which concert you're planning on going to.
Yeah, any content you guys get at the concert, tag us. Acting NorCal, Talking NorCal. And that concludes the NorCal Notes of the Week.
Okay, now let's move to our interview with Chris Carr from Shasta Mountain Guides. Okay, we'd now like to welcome on a very special guest to the podcast. We have with us Chris Carr. He is the founder of Shasta Mountain Guides and a person with a lot of knowledge of the outdoors in the Mount Shasta area. Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely, Zach. Thanks for the invite. Let me correct that statement really quick. I'm not the founder. I'm the current owner of Shasta Mountain Guides. I want to give a shout out to Michael Zanger, who was actually the founder of Shasta Mountain Guides back in the 1970s. Actually, Michael's a bit of a legend around these parts. So acknowledgement and respect to Michael. Myself and my partner Jen, we took over as owners in 2003. So we're going on 22 years here as owners. But yeah, like I said, Michael deserves the credit for founding the company.
Thank you for correcting me. I don't know why I got that wrong, but I know you've been at this for a very long time. So it's great to have your insight on the show. So just real quick, how's the current winter going so far up there in Shasta?
Well, if most of our listeners are in Northern California, you're well aware we've literally started off with a bang this year with the bomb cyclone, the huge storm that hit around Thanksgiving, which really took the mountain, which was nearly bare prior to that, to a winter snowpack. I think we're looking at what I just checked, 77 inches at the old ski bowl right now. So we started off huge in November, and then just this past weekend we got a couple more feet of snow. And then looking forward, this coming weekend, we've got another couple inches of water coming as well. So we're off to a great start. One of the deepest snowpacks in the West. The ski park is at full operation. All lifts are running. All trails are covered. I've been on the mountain pretty regularly. The mountain's looking like mid-February right now. So to have these conditions prior to Christmas, looking like we might have a bit of a white Christmas, things are looking great up here. And for us, here in Northern California, as we know, water is a precious commodity. So we are super stoked to have lots of snow and lots of rain to start the season.
Yeah, it's definitely a great start to the season. When we get years like this where it's early precipitation and we're all jumping for joy and the ski park opens earlier than usual, what's your outlook for the rest of the winter? Do you stay optimistic, or do you have some level of pessimism going on in the back of your mind it could turn dry at any moment?
Oh boy, that's the $1 million question. And for most people who know me, I'm generally pretty optimistic. I'm always looking at the bright side. The fact that we're off to a good start, storms have been pretty consistent, makes me feel really positive. 30 years on Mount Shasta. This will be my 30th winter, so it's hard not to be a bit pessimist too. We've suffered some pretty severe droughts and wildfire season. So I just did a little bit of a deep dive into some of the long-term forecasts, and I don't think any of those are particularly reliable, but we started out looking like a weak La Nina winter. That's trending downwards a little bit, more trending into a kind of a neutral, an ENSO neutral year. And even if that La Nina does show up, it looks like we'll transition back to a kind of an ENSO neutral winter, probably around March or so. So really what that means, we still don't know, because even in a La Nina, a weak La Nina or an ENSO neutral, we still have kind of a 50-50 odds of having a good or an average winter. So, even the experts don't know exactly. So I'm going to go with faith and, keep doing our snow dances and keep doing everything we're doing because, let's keep the precip rolling because it's definitely off to a good start. Like I said, I'm optimistic that it's going to keep rolling. I also wouldn't be surprised. We get sometimes long periods of high pressure, which is sometimes a nice break from shoveling and snow removal. And it's nice to see the sun in the wintertime. So I'll take whatever we can get and make the most of it. But we're definitely off to a good start.
You have to leave some room for those bluebird days, right? You can't just have snow all the time.
It's why I moved to California, really. After the storms, the blue sky, it's hard to beat.
You can't beat it, exactly. So can you talk a little bit, for anyone who doesn't know, what Shasta Mountain Guides is? What do you do, and why is your service super important for a mountain like Mount Shasta?
That's a really good question. So Shasta Mountain Guides, our primary activity is leading trips, particularly summit trips, summit-focused trips on Mount Shasta. We also operate in the Shasta Trinity National Forest, some backpacking trips on the PCT, as well as we have a permit in the Lassen National Park where we lead backpacking trips and some backcountry ski trips as well. But to answer your question, climbing Mount Shasta attracts all ranges of climbers, from seasoned experts and professionals to brand new outdoor adventurers, people who don't necessarily have mountaineering experience. And I think that's really where we fill a niche, because if you haven't done this before, climbing Mount Shasta and expecting to reach the summit is a huge undertaking. Physically, mentally, we have to get lucky with the weather and the conditions. There's so much that goes into a safe climb, and number two, a successful climb. So hiring a professional, hiring folks that have got years and years of experience, who know what it takes to reach the summit safely and successfully, can really, enhance your experience. And I think there's a bit of a misconception that guides just show you the way to the top, and that's really just a small part of what we do. Again, all the little details that go into a successful summit, nutrition, pacing, timing, route selection, avoiding hazards, etc. So it really is a big undertaking. And the thing with Mount Shasta is it attracts everybody, whether you're a climber or a non-climber. That's what we see very frequently. People may only desire to climb Mount Shasta. They may not want to climb any other mountain, but there's something special about it. As we know, living here, there's something that draws people in. So we get people who aren't necessarily mountaineers. So somebody like us can really enhance that experience and make for a safe and successful climb.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know exactly how dangerous it can be to climb Mount Shasta. It sits there, it looks at us, and there's plenty of people who do it quite frequently. I'm sure you're one of those people. But I know just from my experience, my father used to attempt it every year in the summer, and I think he did this for about 15 straight years. He would train for 6 weeks to 2 months at a time. And out of those, let's say 15 times, he didn't make it like 4 or 5 times, right?
Yeah.
This is a person who's done it a bunch of times, who trains hard to do it.
Those are actually good odds.
Yeah. So he says. And so can you just talk about just why it can be so difficult to summit Mount Shasta, and what are some of the most common mistakes that you'll see with people on the mountain?
Really good question. I think the most common misconception is, or I shouldn't say misconception, but people underestimate how difficult this is. And I did it my first time I attempted the climb. What's really unique about Mount Shasta is Mount Shasta is the largest peak by volume in the United States. So it's huge. And remember, when we're driving up I-5 or Highway 89 or 97, you see it from 100 miles away. That indicates that the scale of the mountain, we're starting at 3,000 feet, 11,000 foot of relief from the valley below. So from our starting elevation, which is typically at 7,000 feet where we can drive to the trailheads, that's 7,000 feet of vertical relief, taking us through a very, difficult and challenging terrain, loose rock and scree, snow and ice, steep altitude, thin air, etc. So even for folks who are seasoned athletes, marathon runners, ultra runners, I hear very frequently, and I experience all the time, people say that this is the hardest thing they've ever done physically and mentally. There's a mental piece that comes with mountaineering too. Like we often joke, it's not always fun, it's not always enjoyable when we're mountaineering. It's type 2 fun. It's fun when it's over. So you really have to have the grit and the determination to work through those challenges. Your body and your brain is telling you to turn around and to stop. So you got to have a strong will and desire to make it. And then, as you mentioned too, mountaineering is dangerous. It's inherently dangerous. It comes with the activity. We do our best to minimize the hazards, but we cannot completely eliminate the hazards. So there's always a certain degree of responsibility that we have traveling in the mountains. We always have to be ready to turn around when the conditions don't line up or if hazards are increased, and have the experience and the mental ability to do that. People get often summit focused, and it's important to remember the big picture. Our first priority is always coming back down again, always returning home. And that's number one and should guide all of our decisions. Sometimes beginners don't know what they don't know, and it's hard to recognize the challenges. My very first time I attempted Mount Shasta, I made every mistake in the world. So I know what that side of it looks like too. So and that's really what our goal is as guides. Whether you choose to climb with us or not, I really want people to have a safe and enjoyable experience here, because this is a very special mountain, and it can be transformational for folks. But we want it to be so in a good way, in a positive way. We want people to be safe. We want them to have fun and to really enjoy what a special mountain this is.
Yeah, and I want to give people sort of an overview, and I didn't prepare you for this question, but so say someone signs up with you to climb Mount Shasta. What does the 36-hour process of climbing it? What are you typically going up to an area, camping, and then finishing first thing in the morning and coming down? Can you sort of give us like what the 36-hour, 24-hour journey of climbing Mount Shasta is?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to keep this as brief but thorough as possible, because really people attempt the summit climb in many different ways. It's certainly possible to do in a single push, or what's called car to car. For the experienced alpinist or the ski mountaineer, that might be the preferred way to do it. You really have to have a lot of things line up to do that successfully. A lot of people consider this a weekend climb, a 2-day climb, and that's a reasonable objective. I tend to recommend a longer trip, 3 days on the mountain, and what we have found a significant higher summit success rate on the longer itinerary for a number of different reasons. But I'm just going to I'll run through what a typical weekend, 2-day trip looks like, and talk about that, because I think that's what most people frame this trip as, this climb as. So day one, you're going to arrive in the town of Mount Shasta. We're at the base. That's where I am right now. 3,500 feet is where town lives, and there's groceries and hotels and restaurants and the Fifth Season outdoor store for all your equipment needs. So you're going to get your supplies and everything you need in town. Probably arrive Friday afternoon or evening, and then plan on Saturday morning as early as possible to head up the road. The Everett Memorial Highway goes from the town of Mount Shasta at 3,500 feet to the trailhead of Bunny Flat at 7,000 feet. And that's the jumping off, the starting point for all of the south side routes on the mountain. So we're going to start at Bunny Flat. Depending on the time of year, early season, April, May, we're going to be on snow the entire time. Depending on our winter snowpack and how things go, as we get into late May or June, we might be walking on dry ground for a bit to reach tree line. That snow level will change every year, and that's really important thing to track, because climbing in the Cascades, a big factor that makes climbing safer and more efficient is an adequate snowpack, and a lot of people don't realize that. Unlike Mount Whitney and the Sierras to our south, climbing in the Cascades, we need snow, at least for the south side and the glacier climbing routes. So we're probably walking on snow, and for a lot of people that might be a new experience, and that's where people can often struggle, because walking on snow, even flat ground, can be really inefficient, compared to your running trails or your cycling that you're doing. So that's one of the first challenges we encounter. So we're going to go from Bunny Flat to our base camp. And our base camp is going to be anywhere from timberline, tree line at approximately 8,000 feet So probably Lake Helen is the highest base camp I would recommend. Lake Helen, first of all, there's no lake. Let me be clear about that. I've seen people with fishing rods, heading up there. Not going to happen. Lake Helen's at 10,400 feet. That's a big elevation gain, but it splits up the climb into 2,500-foot days. Not necessarily what I recommend, but that's kind of the default itinerary that people default to. There's plenty of camping between Timberline and Lake Helen. That might be a better option. So first day, you're going to hike to base camp. You're going to set up your base camp, probably on snow. Anchor your tents firmly, because even on the nicest spring days or summer days, the wind can pick up at any time. It's always possible. So we're going to make camp. We're going to get to bed very early. On our trips, we're always going to do a snow school where we teach and we practice how to use the ice axe and climb with crampons and climb efficiently. Breathing techniques that we know are effective for dealing with the altitude, etc. But we get to bed early, typically before the sun goes down, and then we're getting up just a few hours later. So that's why we say it's more of a 36-hour push. You're not getting a whole lot of rest, while you lie down for a few hours, but it certainly helps. Take some deep breaths and get ready for the summit push, which typically begins anywhere from midnight to 2 a.m., depending on your base camp location, how you're feeling, etc. And we do that for a couple of reasons. One, we want to climb in the early morning hours when the snow surface is consolidated and firm. It makes for efficient travel. It also reduces one of our greatest hazards, climbing Avalanche Gulch, which is in the form of rockfall, which people are probably aware or have heard about. Rockfall is naturally occurring in the Cascades or really any mountain regions that we travel in. A frozen surface and a deep snowpack will help minimize that rockfall hazard, which is a big piece of why we climb with snow in the Cascades. So we climb early with good crampon conditions. For most people from your base camp, it's anywhere from 6 to 9 hours up ascending to reach the high point or the summit being at 14,179 feet. Fifth highest peak in California, the second highest Cascade volcano behind Mount Rainier. So we reach that high point. We'll take our snapshots, our photos. We'll sign the summit register. There's a book that lives on the summit. And then we'll make the descent. And the descent often can take as much time as the ascent, generally 4 to 5 hours on the descent. Sometimes we can glissade. Sometimes we can ski, which is even better. But we'll get back to our base camp. We'll pack up our camp, and then we'll head back down to the trailhead. And in total, we're looking at a 14, 15, 16-hour day. So, show me a marathon, or certainly there's some ultra marathons that reach that type of activity. But mountaineering and that type of volume, elevation gain, the terrain we're moving through, the heavy weight in our packs, there's a lot of things adding up that are going to make this a really challenging ascent. But that was kind of the quick 24-hour, rundown of what a summit climb looks like.
No, that's good. I think a lot of people don't understand, how big of it. When you look just to the southeast, you have Lassen Peak, which you could do in a couple hours, and and I think people compare the two, which they're you can't compare them in terms of summiting. You mentioned skiing, and I see you guys up there skiing a lot, especially in winter. But I also know that prime climbing conditions are really bad skiing conditions, and vice versa. So when can you get up to the summit and actually ski down? And other than that, what are some of the best skiing opportunities up on the mountain?
So really good question. The last few years, maybe longer than that, the sport of backcountry skiing and snowboarding, we tend to clump them all into one category, but this equally is true for snowboarders or split boarders as it is for backcountry skiers. But in the last, decade, backcountry skiing and boarding has just, skyrocketed in popularity. And, it's, for us as locals, we don't realize, we may not always realize the resource we have in our backyard, but Mount Shasta is considered one of the prime ski mountaineering destinations, not just in North America, but in the world. And that's because of our relief. Like I said, 7,000 foot of elevation gain, 11,000 of elevation gain in the wintertime. Generally pretty good California weather. And if we have a good winter snowpack, that creates these conditions in the springtime for what's called corn snow or melt freeze snow. And that's where the snowpack, as we get into the spring and summer, the snowpack will consolidate through warm days and cold nights. It creates a very consistent and uniform snowpack. And there is an overlap for good climbing and good skiing conditions, and that's generally May. So what we want is that firm frozen snowpack like I talked about for climbing, but then in a nice spring day, especially in April, May, and into early June, as the sun comes up, it softens that snow surface. Just the top few inches of the snow surface get soft, and it creates what we call nature's groomer. It just makes for 2 or 3 inches of sometimes perfectly smooth, perfectly carvable ski and riding conditions that make for just amazing ski conditions. And for most skiers and most backcountry skiers, I don't care where you reside, if you're in Utah or in Colorado or even the Alps in Europe, they recognize California in particular, Mount Shasta, the Eastern Sierra, to have this magical season, this corn season, when the weather is generally pretty nice. The snow conditions are ideal. We're less concerned about avalanches. We can ski back down to the trailhead and put on our flip-flops and go jump in the lake. It really is just kind of that magic time of the year. So and what makes Mount Shasta so special is it really is a skier's and rider's peak, because off of every aspect, north, south, east, and west, you can ski from near the summit or literally off the summit and have an incredible ski descent. Each one, has its own challenges and rewards. And let's not forget too, Shastina, which, as third highest Cascade volcano, that's its whole other peak, which we probably won't even have time to talk about as well. But that also has all these same qualities and attributes that Shasta does. But unfortunately, because it's, parked next to Mount Shasta, just doesn't get quite the recognition that it deserves. But I love skiing and climbing on Shastina as well.
When you go skiing up on Mount Shasta, are you typically doing like Avalanche Gulch, Old Ski Bowl area, or is there a different area?
There are, and as the seasons change, and most importantly, in the wintertime anyway, what we're looking for are safe conditions. In the wintertime and early spring, we're all, there's other hazards we're monitoring, primarily around avalanches. And especially when we have frequent snow and regular snow and these big storms where it dumps 1 to 2 or plus more feet of snow with lots of wind. So we're always monitoring and observant of avalanche hazard. So there's definitely different areas. Avalanche Gulch is named Avalanche Gulch, and you've probably seen the last couple of years the big avalanches that have been coming down. So we have other areas typically below tree line in the trees. Shasta has these large forests, large Shasta red firs that make for really good, safer ski terrain during storms or during periods of high avalanche hazard. So, from the starting point at Bunny Flat, we have several different options of where we could ski, depending on avalanche hazard, depending on the snowfall amounts, depending on what the sun's doing. Really our job as guides then is to finding the safe snow, but also finding the good snow, because the snow quality and snow texture changes very quickly, especially on a large exposed volcano. The wind is getting at it, the sun is getting at it. So we're always looking for those stashes where the snow is consistent, it's soft and safe. So we have our bag of tricks and our little secret stashes that we'll definitely explore. But, a year like this where we have pretty low snow level, it really opens up a lot of options. Obviously, the attention, most people want to be on Mount Shasta, but the Shasta Trinity National Forest, Mount Eddies, the Eddies, Deadfall Lakes region, it's all, prime terrain for all of these activities.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about just some other areas? I see you guys going to places like Castle Lake and the mountains above Castle Lake. Is that sort of the next best thing when it comes to skiing in the area?
Like I said, for most people, when they visit the area, they want to be on Mount Shasta. And there's wonderful terrain and skiing on the mountain. For us as locals, where we ski, and when conditions are good, I'm skiing almost daily. And as a local, and if you visited in the summertime and never explored Castle Lake is equally as spectacular, if not more so, covered in 10 feet of snow. And it makes all of those peaks and all of those high points around the lake, as well as the terrain. When you go to Castle, the ridges just keep going from Castle to Cliff Lake to Gumboot to, as far as you want to go. All of that is available in potential ski terrain and is definitely a destination. So most of us wouldn't consider it a consolation because it's it's spectacular in those conditions. But sure, it's not skiing on Mount Shasta, but it's a pretty good second place.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm curious about you personally. I guess I don't know anything about you personally. How did you get in this life? Where are you from originally, and how did you make your way over to Shasta?
Oh boy, like I said, this is going to be my 30th year on Mount Shasta, which is amazing to me because I remember my first day. I remember my first guide training with Michael Zanger like it was yesterday, and it's just time has flown by. I love this area. I love this community. So short answer, I came to Northern California as part of a college student exchange. And I attended Chico State my junior year of college in 1992 or so. So from Chico, obviously, as we all know, it's a great jumping off point to Lassen. I discovered Lassen, and I started driving to the coast and up I-5. And literally Mount Shasta appeared in my windshield one day, and I was just like, oh my gosh, what is that? I need to go there. And I just felt, just like many of our guests do, just like we all do, I felt that draw and felt that inspiration. So I discovered it in college. I had to go back east. I'm from New England, Massachusetts originally. I finished up college, and within a couple months drove my Volkswagen back out west and never left. I met originally some of the founders of the climbing ranger program, Matt Hill and Dan Towner, and they introduced me to Michael Zanger at Shasta Mountain Guides. I started working for Michael as a guide in 1995, and then in 2003, like I said, Michael gave my wife Jen and myself the opportunity to purchase the company. So it was an obvious decision. It was something I hoped and prayed for, and it came true. And every day I wake up grateful I get to do what I do and love my job every day. It's always different. It's always exciting. We get to provide these opportunities and these experiences for people that are sometimes transformational and mind blowing, and that I love. And our network of guides and our family of guides is they're like family to us. So it's we're grateful for this privilege every single day. I mean, right now the sun's out, the mountain's glowing. It still takes my breath away.
Well, I won't keep you then because you probably have some skiing to do today, which I'm jealous. And I have to say, it's fascinating the percentage of people who come onto this podcast who went to Chico State, myself included, is pretty high. So we're the same alumni, which I guess a lot of people in Northern California are, but I think what you guys do is fantastic. God knows we report a lot on avalanches and disappearances and just a lot of negative things that happen on the mountain. And what we don't get to report on are the near misses that people like you help keep people safe on the mountain, so we don't have to report on the bad things. So I appreciate what you guys do, and I think we'll probably have to have you on again in a few months to give us another winter report from the mountain, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I would love that. And before we finish up, I think there's one more thing I want to talk about because it's affecting all of us right now. And I don't know if you're aware, but so the town of Mount Shasta at 3,500 feet, to access the mountain is, as I mentioned earlier, the Everett Memorial Highway. And that it's not a highway, it's a county road, 2-lane county road to take us to 7,000 feet. That county road has been closed since the last storm cycle in Thanksgiving. It's been closed for almost a month now, and it still remains closed. So I just want to be sure that our listeners and folks paying attention, planning your trip up here. It's been one of our struggles for the last several years, our county struggles. It's a county responsibility to plow the road to keep the trailheads open. In the last several years, we've really been struggling with keeping that road open for a number of factors. These big snow events that we're seeing, their equipment is aging, everybody's budgets are reduced. But point is, be aware that, for right now, I know the county's working hard on it. We've been speaking with the county and the city, but just heads up to folks before planning your trip up here. If you're expecting that road to be open, check with us, check with the county, check with the rangers at the Forest Service, just to make sure the road is open. Because it's been a bummer for folks to arrive hoping to get to Bunny Flat and go sledding or go skiing, and the road's gated just above town a little way. So also just kind of a heads up to people, we need your support. If any more public input we get to help the board of supervisors, understand what a value and resource the Everett Memorial is to those of us in Siskiyou County is definitely helped is helpful as well. So yeah, heads up on that. So
great. Is there a website, the best website for people to check the opening of the Everett Memorial Highway?
There isn't. That's something we're trying to work on right now. The county, their website, they have a place on the website where it shows the road status. I'll be quite honest, it's generally not accurate, or it's not updated frequently. I've been calling the county, and they've been very good to take my calls and answer those questions. But you can imagine the challenges with keeping that road open, and then we had some boulders and trees down and all these issues up there and broken equipment, etc. But yeah, we're trying to work on solutions. We're trying to find some, better ideas so that we can have that road consistently open throughout the winter. Because for us in the town of Mount Shasta in South Siskiyou County, there's a big economic driver there. But really personally for us, I mean, not having that access is really challenging for, many of the locals, myself, who chose to live here. So it's a big issue.
Yeah, I know they've had some issues keeping the Castle Lake Road open as well. So
right.
So yeah. Well, that makes sense. Thank you for putting that in there. Thanks for coming on. This has been really, really great chatting with you and getting some more insights into the mountain and to the people who keep the mountain moving and keep people on the mountain moving. So thanks for all you do, and I hope we can have you on again soon to talk a little bit more.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, thanks everybody for listening. And if anybody has questions or things that we'd like to talk about in the future, let us know. Because like I said, I feel it's our duty as guides just to share information, help people be safe, and help people have fun. So I'm definitely happy to do it again.
Yeah, follow Shasta Mountain Guides on social media. And Chris, you're great on social as well. What are you, Shasta Guide on Instagram?
I'm Shasta Guide on Instagram, but Shasta Mountain Guides is our company.
You do some great visual updates on the mountain, so I appreciate it.
Awesome.
So yeah, go follow Chris, and thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks, y'all.
Okay, big thanks to Chris Carr for coming on the podcast. Awesome guy doing awesome things up in Mount Shasta. If you want to climb Mount Shasta in 2025 or beyond, go look up Shasta Mountain Guides. Chris Carr, they do great things. You need a guide to stay safe on the mountain, so just remember that. Okay, closing. I wanted to talk about the earthquakes that have happened.
Is there more than one?
Yes. So I was on a flight from Sacramento to San Francisco on this day. When was this? It
was Thursday.
It was December 5th? December 5th.
Sounds right.
So I was on the flight and we were just boarded and we were sitting in our seats and everyone's alert comes up. Beep, beep, beep. And it was like, notice tsunami on its way. And we're
wait.
What the?
So you were in San Francisco or you were in Sacramento?
I was in Sacramento. Tsunami on its way. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I'm like, all right, whatever. And we took off. I didn't know what it was. And, I lost service. We land in San Francisco. I didn't see a tsunami. So that was good. And we found out it was a 7-point earthquake off the coast of Humboldt. It obviously caused a decent amount of damage in Humboldt. And since then, over the last, 2 weeks, there's been a ton of, 3, 4, recently even 5 magnitude earthquakes coming from that section of the ocean right outside of Humboldt.
I felt none of them. I was in a meeting when that happened. I was on my computer on Zoom. Felt nothing. Didn't know about it till after. And yeah. But it was funny because you were in the air and our mom's like, oh my God, there's going to be a tsunami. I don't know. They're going to have to divert Zach's plane. And I was like,
that's fine.
I think
nothing happened. By the way, the tsunami never came.
And they retracted their
and
warning.
I get why they do it. They put out the warning and it mostly impacts the area closest to the somewhat like Crescent City. Crescent City has experienced massive tsunamis due to earthquakes. So it's important, if there's an earthquake out there, you might as well put out the tsunami warning so people who are close to the shore can get away. I mean, shoot, if you're hiking next to the coast, if you're on the Lost Coast Trail or whatever, like you could see dangerous waves, tides coming your way. So it's good that they do it. They just happen to take it down. So
now they see a lot more tsunamis in like China, but like they're a little bit more prepared for
Japan.
them. Is it Japan?
Yeah.
They are more prepared for them. They have like tsunami plans, whereas it feels like we're not.
So Humboldt
prepared.
has tsunami like sirens. It has, obviously alerts go out on phones. And that's kind of the only area that does it. I don't think there are.
But it's possible for it to happen elsewhere.
Yeah, I think it's pretty rare to hit somewhere like San Francisco.
Well, it's also rare for a tornado to touch down
True.
in San Jose, but these
True.
things happen.
And obviously it kind of sounded like an Amber Alert, like beep,
Yeah.
beep. So if you're doing that to people in San Francisco, I don't know. If there's a tsunami coming to San Francisco that's happening in like 5 minutes, I don't know. There's much you can do.
I used to have an earthquake alert on my app or like on my phone, like an app that would literally like duck and cover kind of a warning, but like it just I never used it, so I don't anymore. But yeah, again, this didn't affect me at all, but I did see videos of dramatic shaking that occurred because of this. So
damage in stores and all that good stuff. So a lot of people say like, okay, why does this happen? Is this the San Andreas fault or whatever? It actually is not. This is, and I think this is something that everyone that lives on the West Coast and Northern California should know about. It's called the Cascadia subduction zone. Essentially, this is a zone that goes from, Vancouver all the way down to Northern California, and it's this fault in the ocean, just right off the coast, that does experience significant earthquakes, and an earthquake that's even further up south can cause tsunamis down all the way in Northern California.
well, doesn't it meet the San Andreas fault?
Sort of. It stops before the San Andreas fault, but they're pretty darn close. So that's like a lot of people, like San Andreas fault is more like San Francisco, where the subduction zone ends in like the Humboldt area off the coast there. But it is responsible for all these earthquakes that we see in the Humboldt area, right? So this zone stretches for 600 miles, again, all the way from Vancouver, Canada, down to Northern California. So there is evidence from 1700 that a 9.0 earthquake and a massive tsunami hit, and most of the Native American inhabitants in the area like perished because of this great earthquake from the Cascadia subduction zone. They say it produces a giant earthquake roughly every 243 years. So I don't know if this one counts as like a giant one, right?
No,
it's not a 9.0, it's a 7.0, right?
Yeah. But what you didn't say, but is true, is that this Cascadia subduction zone has more power than the San Andreas fault. This can generate a 9.0, whereas the San Andreas fault, it can only get up to like a 7.2 or 3 or something like that. So it has the potential of putting out a much stronger earthquake than the San Andreas fault has capability of doing.
Yes,
Which is why your point, we should be talking about this more.
San Andreas can produce a maximum of 8.2 magnitude earthquake. Cascadia subduction, I guess it doesn't say, but
I saw it. It said it in there.
Well, it doesn't say what the maximum is. I don't know what the maximum magnitude earthquake there could be. I just know that they have evidence of a 9.0.
Right.
So
we know it
essentially
at least
it is
has that capability.
It is capable of far larger earthquakes. Now, the difference is San Andreas fault goes right through land. The Cascadia subduction zone does not. So it's off the coast, which makes it a little bit easy. You know, if San Andreas Fault goes through some pretty highly populated areas, which could be devastating. And I've certainly sat through earthquakes in San Francisco that were pretty scary. But there is also this area called the Mendocino Triple Junction where the Cascadia meets San Andreas.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, it meets, but not totally. But it's this big area. They call it the Triple Junction, where
it's like the Bermuda Triangle of earthquake behavior.
Yes. So, and of course, this is all part of the actual Ring of Fire. The Ring of Fire that goes, you know, the volcanoes from Japan all the way up through Alaska and all the way down Northern California. You got Mount Hood up in Oregon, Shasta, Lassen. You got the fault over in Mammoth. So this is it's all part of the Ring of Fire, the seismic activity that we live in it. So people are always asking, like, why are there so many earthquakes? That is why. So anyway, fun story.
Probably more to come. Hopefully they're not devastating, but one devastating one is due to come in the not too distant.
Well, it's funny because there's all these 4-point earthquakes that we're seeing there. They're aftershocks and like it's not even news. Whereas if they happened on their own, they are news. Now, these are good things that happen because every time there's an earthquake, tension releases a little bit in these faults. So it means that it's a good sign that we're not going to have the big one. So anyway.
Yeah.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
Okay, that does it for this episode of the Talking NorCal podcast. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Talking NorCal, or on Active NorCal. Also, subscribe to the Active NorCal magazine. Issue number 15 is out. Use the promo code Talking NorCal at checkout to get $10 off your subscription. And thanks for listening. And remember, stay active.
NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and I could spend all day just chilling in the South Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and Darren knows how to do kick it down in Santa Cruz. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and we get a little cray-cray when we visit the East Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal.